Freak Nation, Leanne Patterson joining us here in the Freak Nation. And if I read this line to you, Freak Nation, if it said, what could possibly go wrong if a skunk was in the pits at an auto race? Well, I know a few skunks, and they're on 2 feet, not 4. But this is an actual skunk, and it's part of a book, a children's book called The Trouble with Howard. And the author, again, Leanne Patterson, joining us now on the Freak Nation. I could read through this press release, but I'm not going to because we have you on this show, Leanne. Tell the Freak Nation what this book is about and how it involves a skunk and a couple of real-life folks in the pits, dirt tracks.
It's based on a true story of Howard and Anita Millican that were racers, sprint car racers, and then went on to IndyCar works with Bobby Unser and Dan Gurney, etc. So great racers. And Anita Millican, Howard and Anita Millican, she was the very first woman ever licensed as an IndyCar mechanic and the very first to go over the wall as a member of the pit crew. She did so as the Jackman. She was a wonderful mechanic and a fabricator, but they were just really fun people. And on the way to a sprint car race, they rescued a baby skunk and got a little baby doll bottle feeder and took her to the race. And that just needed more care. And because they were racing every week, as sprint car people do, that skunk went to the racetrack with them. And they named him Trouble, and the name stuck. So Trouble the skunk went to all the races with them.
Hold on just a second. Now, look, I know that racers could be kind of crazy, and they might hit their head too many times. But I see a skunk, I get the F away. I don't pull the thing up and start to feed the damn thing.
Well, it was tiny. It was a little baby skunk. The mother was actually dead. We emphasize that because we actually don't want people going out and collecting baby skunks thinking this is fun. So the mom was dead, and they saw a little thing wiggling beside as they rolled down the road and went and got him. And Trouble, the real Trouble, actually never sprayed anybody, never sprayed Howard or Anita because he never felt threatened, save one. And it was a guy in the shop that didn't really like him. And when the day he was there and he shouldn't have been there, well, Trouble defended his turf.
Which, of course, you're going to need to read the book to find out, because that is part of this story, isn't it? I mean, who's going to be the unlucky spray victim? You got to read it.
Right. That's right. We were actually teasing a group of kids that were reading it too. And they asked the question, what do skunks do? And one of the little girls raised her hand and said, they fart. Yeah. Yes, they do.
Yeah, they do.
Quite unpleasantly, actually.
Quite unpleasantly.
Kenny, you have your own personal skunk story with your cat.
Yeah, but listen.
I know, but
this is about
this book. And for the unlucky person that Trouble sprayed, just throwing that out there was a remedy. And the remedy you actually already knew about.
You just make sure you have gallons of tomato juice.
Soup.
No, it was tomato juice. Yeah. I think it was V8 that I used on Bubba's. Whatever it was. But anyway, this is Leanne's story, Crasher.
Well, and in Trouble's case, when he got to the house, Anita fed him a lot of cat food. So the real Trouble ended up being a 9-pound skunk because she fed him for a lot of years. And in the real Trouble story, they never actually descended him. It's now illegal to do that. And he did make his way back to the wild and had a family and had a bunch of little kits and lived happily ever after. And I'm sure he is still telling his stories about his time at the race. But in this particular book, we do take a few liberties and things that coulda, shoulda, may have happened. Some of the stories with Howard and Anita are he made nests in wild places. He dug into toolboxes. He jumped into coolers. He hid in trailers. So he did live up to his name and to the antics. And so we have a lot of fun with that in the book.
Trouble
Right.
Getting in trouble at the racetrack. The bottom line, though, is this is based on a true story. And what you just said blows my mind. I did not realize that. This skunk, after living a life in motorsports, went on back into the wild after it was healthy enough to do so and had its own family. I mean, that I was unaware of.
Well, in the back of the book, we do have a little bio about Howard and Anita and a little bio about Trouble, the real skunk, and how that happened. Remember that they were the inventors of the shock dyno. They were the first to put an IndyCar on a flow bench. So they were formidable. But in this particular book case, we focused on their sprint car careers. And Roger Warwick does the art. Now, he's a phenomenal artist. Some people have known his work for years. He did the big legendary poster, the last call poster with all the caricatures of all the legends. But in this particular case, his art is so realistic and we kept it authentic. So this is one of the few racing books for children where a sprint car looks like a sprint car. You can see the chassis roll cage. You can tell that the fuel cells look like fuel cells, and the jugs and the bungee cards, and the hauler looks like a hauler in the pit road. So we've really taken the time to make it authentic. And I think that is one of the things that has made this book popular so far with the racers, is because you can look at that and say, that's a sprint car. It could be a quarter midget or a midget, but it definitely looks like a real race car. And we have a lot of things about the racetrack that are true to the sport in this book. It's written by racers, about racers, for racers. And we had a lot of fun doing that.
Wow. Leanne Patterson is an author. Authors have great imaginations. I'm going to ask you to go deep in the weeds here. What are some of the stories that Trouble might be telling his family about his time at the racetrack? Tell us some of the stories that Trouble might be sharing with his family.
Well, let's see. Our Trouble might be telling about the time that somebody snuck into their hauler and tried to mess with Howard and Anita's stuff. And maybe there was a chase around a sprint car inside a hauler. And maybe he escapes and threatens the entire grandstands with spray. And maybe he loves to steal hot dogs.
Ooh.
And maybe he
smart.
loves to get on a quad and ride around with Howard all the time.
Now, wait a minute. Stealing hot dogs. I'm down that road. I'd rather have a good grilled hot dog than a steak. So did Trouble get into trouble stealing hot dogs? Some of those hot dogs at some of those racetracks, I've eaten a lot of them, and some of them aren't worth remembering.
Well, he's a skunk. They pretty much eat anything that smells good.
Speaking of farts.
Trouble would even like the Martinsville pink hot dogs. So yeah, Trouble doesn't discriminate in hot dogs.
And they're not very picky,
No, not at all. It's food.
So true. So true.
So the stories about at the racetrack, Howard and Anita, we don't want to gloss over this Anita part of the story.
Good point.
Especially at a time when women are stepping up to the plate, to mangle a metaphor, and becoming pretty important in racing. They're more than just keeping score or going for drinks. They are actually part of some of the best crews at the racetrack.
Wow, you just said a mouthful.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm one of those gals that has been in the garage area for 30 years. And so while I don't think we've just become important, I just don't think there were too many of us.
Right.
There was a time when Anita was P1 and the very first to do what she did. And Howard held the garage door open for her. I mean, she kept her head down. A lot of people didn't know she had done it because when she went over the wall, she had balaclava over her head. So she had her head sock on and didn't really talk about it because there were people that were not happy that she was there.
Even
women that were not happy that she was there.
To hide that long braid.
Yes, she did. She had to do that, and she kept her head down. I mean, there were times when guys tried to rip the shirt off of her and say she was taking a job of a man.
Oh.
There were women that didn't know why she had to be, in her husband's office. They didn't do it. They didn't really understand. There were times when they had a Bluebird bus that they fixed up as a rolling machine shop, because back then you couldn't buy a part, off a truck, right? And so if something went wrong, they went out to the bus and had to do some fabrication. Well, it's slowly but surely they recognized that Anita could do the work while she was out there because she couldn't go in the garage area. Up until 1980, women were not allowed to go in the garage area. You couldn't even walk in the door and hand a guy a set of keys or a sandwich. And so she had to sit. She would build the car in the shop, and then she'd have to sit in the car at the racetrack. And so anyway, they built this bus, and she could do the fabrication, the mechanics. And a couple of guys would walk in and say, "I'm going to tell Howard you were on the lathe," and she'd be terrified. And of course, Howard would walk in just laughing because he knew how good she was. So slowly but surely, she made her way in. And then it took about 20 years to really get more girls in that capacity. I mean, I can literally tell you all the girls in that era. There were many girls that came into the PR sector, not to diminish anything from public relations, but different from being a mechanic and different from being an engineer. And so it took a little bit to do that, but she came in, and once the guys figured out she was there to work and not to flirt, they were okay with it. And then she got super supportive. And then one thing led to another. Eloisa Garza came in as a composite specialist on Johnny Rutherford's car. Linda Connie comes in on AJ Foyt's crew and then takes over Simpson Helmets from that. Vicki O'Connor started everything with Toyota Atlantics and really running the series and being some management that ran a fair race and took care of her guys. So at that point, we start getting these girls that came into these key positions. But you're right, it hasn't become popular to hire those girls. But I will tell you, there were guys that were thankful that we were there, were supportive of us being there. And then, of course, there were guys that were skunks. So.
I just want to interject this. I was just getting involved personally in the business in the early 90s. And yes, some things that I witnessed, it's incredible. People want to say that girls are jealous of each other. No, the men were jealous of the abilities of women in the pits. And it's like, hey, don't look at us. Just look at our work. And the work should be able to talk for itself, speak for itself. Finally, we are, I think, there.
Well, one of the things that in this book, I just treat Anita as if it's just natural for her to be in the space. And I love the fact that one of the reviewers picked up on that. I don't make a huge deal out of it's a woman in the pits. It's like, no, women can be mechanics. It doesn't matter what gender you are to what job you want to do. If that's what you're passionate about doing it, that's what you go do. As long as you have a heart for it, but show up and get the job done. Don't show up and say, I'm trying to prove that a woman can do something. Just show up and do the work. And when you get that opportunity, it really is, you're appreciative of it, but you're also excited that you can do it and open up the door for other women. I mean, for my case, it was Sam Schmidt that made it possible for me to step in as a team owner and a team manager, and was always super supportive. And he has always hired women since then. So Sam Schmidt Motorsports has hired female mechanics and engineers and has really led the way. And, so I applaud him for that. So with people like Howard holding the gate open for Anita, AJ Foyt hired women before others did. Sam Schmidt certainly did. These are the guys that really supported us, and we're thankful for them too, to give us that shot. But just set the stage and let us prove that we can get it done. It's great.
You say back in the day, what years does this take place?
For Anita, it was 1980. And I know that doesn't seem very long ago because we're all of the age where we think 80 was like really young. But are you kidding? That's not that long ago. It really isn't. So she was 1980. Eloisa came in right on top of her. Linda's behind that. For me, my first time in the garage area was 1996. And there were still days when I was the only woman in the garage area during like setup days. Yeah. So it still took us a while. In fact, Caitlin, who was just over the wall with Joseph Newgarden last year, the first woman to ever be on a winning Indy 500, 43-year difference between her and Anita to get that done.
Whoa.
Yeah.
This is the same Anita that Howard and Anita, to bring it full circle here, that's in The Trouble with Howard.
Yeah.
She's in the book. So this is a historic account in addition to a fun book for young people and adults.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really about, getting all of our children interested in racing. I mean, we need mechanics. We need mechanics at all levels of racing. We've got a lot of engineers. We've got, a lot of marketing people. We need those too, but we really need, kids to start learning how to use their hands and be able to turn wrenches on these cars and get excited about it. So we focused on that, and hopefully in the next series of this book, we'll do a little bit more of maybe a mechanic's tale and what it means to, be a part of a team as a mechanic and do things that make it possible for the driver to get that win and how that feels, it's a team sport, and it's important to have all the players, be excited about it.
Leanne, did you just tease something? You said the next series of this book. Okay. Yeah. So The Trouble with Howard is how this conglomerate of books begins. Get your kids involved now, but there's going to be more.
there's going to be more. I mean, it's about celebrating all the different jobs in racing. It's about getting all the different kids excited about it. I think that's an important thing for racing to endure.
That is badass.
All I'm going to say is it's working for our daughter.
Yeah.
She's excited.
Has she read it?
She hasn't read it yet, but she's excited for it. We just started telling her about it. And she's on Sundays, on Saturdays, she's watching racing with us, whether it's 2-wheel, 4-wheel, NASCAR, IndyCar, Formula One, sports cars. She's on it. And she's very intrigued. This is what I really like. She's very intrigued. She's 10 years old. She's very intrigued by the women who are involved in the sport. So I really like that. And that this book emphasizes some of that, but in a normal sense, because it's normal to her. So yay. Thumbs up.
And it should be normal. Mm-hmm. And it's getting more normal. That's very exciting to see. As someone who once had to have the women's bathroom door unlocked for her because they hadn't unlocked it yet, and I was the only girl there, it's like, yeah, let's make this a little bit more normal. So, I mean, I remember the story. I don't know if y'all remember Alexis Laris. She was the first woman ever to run PR in NASCAR. And she was sitting in a meeting. They said, if you had ladies' restrooms at the track, then the girls might come. And they're like, why would girls want to come to the track?
Yeah,
and she's like, got to be kidding me. Of course, this is our sport too. Mm-hmm. This is my sport. I'm a racer. I'm competitive. I've done a lot of different jobs in racing as a promotions director, worked for Carroll Shelby, ran a team. Team was the hardest, the most satisfying, no doubt, which makes you a racer. And so girls love this sport too. And we get together in packs and we come to the races without the guys because we love it. We don't have to wait to be asked to go on a date to go to the race.
NASCAR found this out. I think it was in the early 90s. They had a big promotion survey and found out that almost 50% of the audience was women who were the wives and girlfriends of the guys who were watching. And that's when they had sponsors on cars like Kroger or Folgers and Underalls and other things that were aimed at women instead of just tires and oil for men. So you're right on target here. We could laugh about the skunk, but there's a lot of things in this story that transcend the history.
Yeah, it's just time to make it a normal thing.
Yeah,
and I think we're certainly there. IndyCar has a lot of gals in the pits. I love that. Kara Adams now has a picture of all the women in the fire suits. I remember that was 2 of us. Now there's a dozen or more. NASCAR now takes an annual picture of all the women that are in the paddock area. If you got a hard card, come in the shot, and there's 60 women in the shot.
Wow.
So it's really, really grand. We love it. But now it's just getting that word to the next generation. One of the things, a lot of my guys, who had daughters, I'm like, if your daughter walks in and says they want to help you on the car and, want to learn how to turn a wrench, say yes. It's okay. In my generation, it would be, there's a man around to solve that problem for you, and you don't have to learn that stuff. But, now we have guys that are turning wrenches that only have daughters, don't have sons, and the girls want to be a part of dad's world, and they want to learn, and they're actually saying yes to that. And I've certainly been a supporter of that all my years in racing to all my guys on all my different crews. Go home, let your daughters, get involved in what you're doing. So go buy them tools. They need to know how to turn those wrenches.
If you can figure out how to keep the attention of a 10-year-old so she can hold that damn flashlight straight. Squirrel. No, straight. Henley, straight. Right there. See where the bolt is? Yeah. Squirrel.
Hey, Dad, what was that noise?
I get it. No, I understand. I'm making light of the situation. I understand.
The guys are just as bad. It's not a gender thing.
I know.
So true.
I sound just like my dad with me. Kidding. Focus.
Focus. Need you right here. Right here.
Yeah, that's a kid thing. Well, wait, hold on. Like you said,
Dad, there's a spider. What? Come on, I don't care what.
Well, that's an adult thing too. That's an adult thing. I mean, there's many guys in the garage area that don't belong there.
Yeah. Oh, do we know that?
25 years of SpeedFreaks in the freak nation. We've found a lot of skunks, and they're not hiding in the woods. They're out there.
Oh, yeah.
They definitely are not. So, Yeah. But I hope that everybody will enjoy this book in the sense that it really is authentic in nature. I've had a lot of racers say we need a lot more racing books for children like this, because we do stay authentic to the look of it, the feel of it. I don't shy away from racing language. We talk about sanctioning bodies and officials, and, you know, kids of racer families will have heard some of this language. And if not, this is a great way to introduce them to it. So I think people will really enjoy it, whether they're racers or not racers. But if they are, they're going to love some of the Easter eggs as well. And in the very front, you'll actually see on the dedication page a pit pass. And so if you gift the book to somebody, you can issue them their pit pass, and then they can go in and read the story from there. So we do have a lot of fun with it, and we have a lot of authenticity with it that I think people will appreciate. So
her name is Leanne Patterson. She, of course, is the author of The Trouble with Howard. It's a children's book based on real life story about auto racers Howard and Anna Millican.
And
of course,
the trouble right there. Hey, give her a full screenshot of Trouble. We got it. She's deserving of that.
Let's get Big Trouble in there.
Big Trouble. There we go. Hi, Trouble.
Bang. There it is. Trubs.
Trouble's cute.
He is. We you know, yeah. And you want to know what his scent is?
I don't know.
It is the sweet smell of victory.
Hey. I thought you were going to say like methanol or something.
Which that is a good smell in the morning.
You know, nitro would also have worked, or elf fuel.
Yeah.
Would have been good too.
Just yes.
There is a website, thetroublewithhoward.com. Also, where can folks get the book?
Thetroublewithhoward.com is the best place to get it. The plush toy, the t-shirts, the skunk air freshener, that's all there too. Speedway Motorsports Inc. has started to carry it. So there's a few places like that. Look for it in other trackside online gift stores as well. The Sprint Car Hall of Fame has some of them. So people are we're just starting to kind of get it out there. But thetroublewithhoward.com is the fastest place right now. So
this has Disney all over it.
You know, animation is good. And I will tell people that some of the things that we have, like we have a book plate where you can get Anita's signature to put inside your book. And all of the proceeds of that will go off to animal rescue operations. So we are supporting that as well with a lot of our stuff. So,
well, yeah. I'll say it again. Did you hear me? This has Disney movies all over it. Why?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
You can talk to Colin Brown, and he can hook you up with his brother, who's done some things for Disney. Never know.
Animations are us. This would be a really good thing. Okay, we'll be thinking about that feature.
There you go. Well, Leanne, thanks for doing this. All right.
Hey, thanks for having me on. You guys are the best. Everybody has a lot of fun with you guys, and I appreciate you taking the time to have a little skunk time with me. So.
When you do your next version, your next edition, whatever is next after The Trouble with Howard, keep us in mind. I can't wait to see where this series goes.
Absolutely. I will do so. Thank you very much.